Hey, how about it, race fans? Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net coming at you with another one of Rich's ramblings. And today, this being the week following World 100 weekend up at Eldora Speedway, I want to talk about inverts because I know around this time of year, whenever there's a big race, whether it be the World 100 or the Dirt Late Model Dream that's taking place at Eldora, or even for that matter, the King's Royal or one of those other races, it seems like inverts wind up as a hot topic. And so here are my thoughts on them. And first of all, I'm going to say, and I know this may not be the popular opinion, I'm not really a big fan of inverts. To me, I kind of see them as almost a punishment for a team that has done its due diligence and has shown up with a fast race car, and then you're going to bury that fast race car deep in a heat race. But I can see both sides of the story. I see why some people like them because at least it has the potential to make for a more exciting heat race, I guess. But just some thoughts on them. And I will say this, for the big races at Eldora, I'm not as opposed to them as I am at some other races where it's maybe the stakes are not quite as high and the racing facility is not the Eldora Speedway. But for one thing, I don't like there to be an invert that involves too many cars. And I know at Eldora, the whole thing of spinning the wheel of doom and all that for the heat races, once you've got everybody determined who's going to be in the field, or once you've set the lineups for the heat races, they have the high point getter to come out there and spin the wheel to determine what the invert's going to be. In my opinion, and I know it came up this time when Nick Hoffman spun a 6 on the wheel, in my opinion, 6 is too many, especially when you're going to run as many heat races as they have to run there, and you're only going to take the top 3. To take the car that's done the best throughout the weekend and put it 6th in a heat race where you're only going to transfer 3, I'm not too crazy about that idea. I wouldn't mind, say, there being 4, and I know 4 was an option on that wheel, but it didn't come up. But an invert of 4 when you're taking 3, that doesn't put the fast car at such a big disadvantage. And I know a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but if you have your car right, you'll get your way back up there. I don't necessarily think that's true anymore. That might have been true 20 years ago or something, but now when we consider everybody's virtually driving the same car. It's a Longhorn or a Rocket or something like that. The whole field's made up of just 2 or 3 different car brands with largely the same kind of engine too. So making a pass where 20 years ago there were big speed variations, you might have in qualifying the difference from front to back could be well over a second. Now the difference front to back's not that great. And especially when you're talking the top 6, 8, 10 cars, I mean, you're talking tenths of a second, if even that, maybe even hundredths of a second that separate the cars. So if you invert too many, you're just burying the best car in the back and running the possibility that it might not even make the feature. Because if you don't finish in the top 3, of course, you got to go one of those B mains, and who knows what could happen there, especially depending on where you start. So I'm not crazy about the idea of having 6 cars inverted for a heat race, especially when it's a lot of cars. But here's the exception for Eldora. Here's why Eldora is a little different. If you're going to do any invert at all, whether it be the heats, the feature, whatever you're going to do, you have to have a track that's raceable from top to bottom. And Eldora is that. You see guys running the top, you see guys running the bottom, and everybody making up ground. So you've got to have that if you're going to have any sort of an invert, because if you're just going to invert and then run on a 1-lane track, everybody's just going to finish where they start in the heat race, and you're just burying the best car in a case like that. And I'm not really too keen on that idea. And then other than that, you also, if you're going to do an invert, you have to have a heat that's long enough to give the drivers that got inverted, it's got to be long enough for them to actually make up some ground, which at Eldora they do that. The heat races are 15 laps, which gives those cars that start back 5th, 6th, it gives them time to move their way up through the field. And another thing I think is important, for the sake of the show and not running the show too long, have longer heat races means that you can only have one class running. And of course, Eldora does that. They had 101 cars signed in for the World 100, so there was only one class. You didn't have multiple classes out there logging laps on the track, rubbering it up, turning into a one-lane track. Like I said, as far as Eldora is concerned, the heat inverts are okay as long as it's not inverting too many. And then I like to see, and I think High Limit does something like this, where if a car, the fast qualifiers or the top point getter, if they get inverted back to back, I would like to see there be some way that they can get locked into the feature, even if they're not able to get into one of those transfer spots. Somehow fix up a way where the top qualifier doesn't have to go to a B main, so that they wind up having to run those extra laps and all that. But for the most part, I'm not really a big fan of doing inverts, especially when there's a lot of cars on a track that might well wind up as a one-lane track, which is unlike, like I said, Eldora, where that doesn't really happen. But that's just my thoughts, and of course, we live in a country where everybody's allowed to have their own thoughts, and your thoughts may be different than mine. But as for inverts, not really a fan. But anyway, that's just me, Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net, saying I'll see you at the track.